Thank you, Greg. All right, so I think we can start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. It's been a while since we had the last call. We skipped the one in September. We didn't have enough new material to share, so I didn't want to take an hour of everybody's time for nothing. But it's good to have you back. This is going to be a little bit shorter call. I had a technical presentation lined up, but last minute we had to postpone it until the next call in January. It's going to be very interesting, I think, that talk about verification and validation, but we'll have to wait. So that's why it's only an hour today. So with that said, let me start going through the slides and we'll see how much time we have for any questions at the end. If anybody has something to ask during the presentation, feel free to raise your hand and we can address it at that point. All right, so the agenda for today, general section update about membership now that we're coming at the end of the year. Then updates on the activities that are going on, Drillbotics, DWIS, some of the other activities, a summary of upcoming events. So everybody kind of mark their calendar, and then close out with the Q&A session. So that's where we stand as at the end of October. We reached the membership level we had at the end of last year. You can see here, 2196 we closed last year, 2228 flat, and we have a couple of months, maybe another 100 members will come in. So a small increase, maybe in the order of 10%, 8%, something like that, compared to last year, which is a good thing. It's healthy. It follows the overall trend for SPE, I think. What is encouraging is the membership of student members, where we closed last year with 467, and now this year with 2 months to go, we are at 561. So that's excellent, and we need to engage those younger members, the students, because this is the future of the section, really, of the society. So we're open always for suggestions, ideas, what these students are interested for, the type of activities they like. It's not just Drillbotics. Everything else, we're open how to engage the new population. On the right side, you see the breakdown per month. You know, at the end of October is the numbers that we see here, total. The breakdown hasn't changed really. We have two big sections in Middle East and North America here, Gulf Coast, and then kind of very evenly distributed across the rest of the sections. On the service, on the type of company, still, as we have seen in the past, service and manufacturing have the biggest share, but there is also oil companies, some contractors. So we're open to, we would like to increase that membership. And through the activities that we have, the last few weeks, we have seen a little bit more interest from drilling contractors and vendors of control systems, etc. So that's excellent. The breakdown based on age, I think, is healthy. The bulk of the members are in the middle of their careers. Ideally, we want to have this young population grow up, but hopefully, with the trends we see from the students, this will stay, full, the pipeline. Okay, so that's it about membership. Let's talk a little bit about the activities.
Dimitrios, just a
yes,
question.
Yes.
Do we know why we have an increase in students? Because the industry is going in the opposite direction than we're going, which is kind of interesting. Do we know why that is?
I'm not sure the why. I think most of the new members are, and I don't have the numbers really to support this, but that's my perception. I think most of the new members come from areas that are not traditional oil and gas. In Asia, in Africa, in South America. I think we see some members, I mean, most of the student members coming from there. And
Okay.
and the reason I'm saying that is because we have seen some interest, for robotics from different universities. There was an event, a conference in India earlier this month, and Binit, the DSATS chair, represented DSATS there, and he gave a presentation. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few of those students signed up. So I think we have some of that is going on around the globe, Now, unfortunately, the website doesn't give me enough visibility to see what disciplines the students are, where they come from. But as a target from our side, I would like to have students outside petroleum engineering or mechanical and electrical engineering, the traditional disciplines like, operation research, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I think we need to tap into other fields. And that's going to be a whole number of new students, new population that we are going to be accessing. And the direction that the technology is going in our industry, I think is aligned with that. But it would be worth understanding better where the growth comes from, but nevertheless, it's a very positive sign.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions about that? No? Okay, so let's continue then with the robotics. I'm not sure if Fredis or Sasi are on the call, but that's where we stand right now. We started the new cycle, 23-24. The guidelines have been released. We're open for judges to be able to review the work of the students. Now, what is critical, though, going forward, is to get some sponsors specifically for robotics. There are some expenses that the section has to cover, like, for example, the students of the winning teams traveling to the drilling conference to present their papers or their models or whatever and that we're trying to do that every year as a recognition and as an award for the work that these students are doing. But that, of course, has some cost, airfare, hotels, etc. So right now we have enough funds to cover for next year, for 2024. But after that, if we don't get enough sponsorship, I'm not sure really how we're going to cover the cost. So we need all of us to reach out to our decision makers and our purse holders and ask them to support the robotics. And donations can be made through the website. It's very easy to make donations. Any donation counts. The other major thing going on the robotics on the right side, on the left side of the slide, we're trying to prepare a documentary. This is a short clip that David Gibson is preparing for us. He has been very active. He has gone out, secured funding for this, and he's already conducting interviews, and he started, creating the content for that documentary. And this is going to cover the history of the robotics, how it started many years ago, how it evolved through the years, the type of problems and solutions that the students are producing. And that all this is going to be a short movie that is going to be available online, for marketing purposes, branding, etc. This is excellent. So by the end of the year, I think we're going to have something to show from David. And there is one more payment that is pending for that. Now, to be clear, David has gone out and has secured the funding for this documentary from sponsors. So it's not net cost for the robotics account. And thanks to David for that. But still, we need to cover other fixed expenses, like I said, the student costs. So not to mention the idea of establishing a scholarship. We have been discussing this for a while, but I mean, without funds, we can't really give that scholarship. A lot of ideas on the table, but we need also some support. Okay. I'm not going to spend more time on that. I think it's clear. We're going to keep all of us pushing. Yeah.
Can I give you a really quick update?
Yes, please.
We have 9 teams. We have 9 teams from 7 universities, meaning 2 schools have 2 teams, and they come from 6 different countries. Okay.
Is it the same teams as last year, Fred, or we have some newcomers?
Some newcomers. I've got
Excellent.
if I can share my screen, I'll show you a quick list.
Yeah, let me stop real quick and then you can start sharing.
Oh, I'm missing the button.
Oh, hold on a second. I'm not sure if you, let's see.
Sorry, I'll just read them out to you, okay?
I'm not sure. Maybe Greg would have to make you a presenter. I don't think I can make you.
That's okay. I'll just tell you.
Okay.
It's some of the same teams we've had in the past. Some have gone away and come back.
Yeah.
So we have a new team, Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation from Malaysia. The University of Mines and Technology from Ghana have 2 teams. We now have the University of Wyoming, and the academic sponsor is a graduate of the program.
Okay.
Clausthal is back. LSU is back, and they have 2 teams this year. University of Calgary has returned, and University of Stavanger is back again. So that's
Excellent.
the 9 teams.
Very, very good. Fred, can you give us a 1 minute overview of what is the challenge, what problem the students are trying to solve?
It's really the same as last year, almost identical. So the challenge is a physical rig to drill a directional well.
Yeah.
And we give them the coordinates about 30 minutes before the test. There is a group aid for directional drilling, and then there's 3 teams that have joined in with the well control option. So they'll interface with the Norse open lab model, and have to detect and close in on a kick.
Excellent. So they will be able to build up on the work that they had started last year and continue whatever had not finished. Okay, very good.
Right. We had 1 well control team last year. We have 3 this year.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Any questions from anyone before we move on? Okay. All right. So let's move on then. So the next update is on the DWIS work. As most of you know, DWIS stands for Drilling and Well Interoperability Standards. This is an effort that started, a few years back. For the last couple of years, it has become more organized, and there are work streams, several work streams working in parallel and coordinating. So this last September, there was a demo by our colleagues at NORS that tried to put together some of the results, some of the work of the different work streams, and that includes protocols, includes software modules that we call advisors, how they collaborate with each other and coordinate to produce control recommendations that pass into the rig, and all that was driving, for this demo, was driving a simulator. Not a real rig, but it's a simulator that simulates a well and the rig, and on top of that there is a layer of the ADCS, what we call the ADCS, Automated Drilling Control System, and the DWIS framework is everything that is sitting on top. So for this demo, Eric and Benoit led the effort, and the idea was to simulate what happens when you are drilling in automated manner, and you hit a stringer. And now all the software that is doing the ROP optimization and hole cleaning and everything that is going on has to adjust to that new reality that you hit a stringer. You don't want to destroy the bit. You don't want to destroy the drill string. Things have to adjust, the drilling parameters, monitor the progress, and when you get out of the stringer, you go back, let's say, to the previous drilling. And all that was to be demonstrated, during this demo. And the challenge is the different pieces of software that work kind of independently of each other to demonstrate, how all this works, that there is no conflict, that there is no, the whole system doesn't collapse when things change. And I mean, that was one objective. The secondary objective is all these pieces of software to be able to exchange information, obviously, that you plug them in and they can be recognized by the network, let's say, what data they bring in, what data they need, and the whole thing to work, let's say, as seamlessly as possible. That's the whole idea of DWIS. So that demo on that it was a Tuesday, the 19th. It lasted about 3-4 hours. There is a link here which you can access from the presentation after it's posted, and you can see the recording. It's recorded, and you can see how the whole thing played out. Eric actually repeated the demo 2 or 3 times to demonstrate the different aspects of the work. The data exchange, the prioritization of these advisors, how they arrange themselves so they don't collide, so to speak, and how you execute basically the sequence and go through the stringer, I'm sorry. So it was a milestone, in my view. It brought together the work from the different work streams that has been going on for a couple of years now. It's only a step in the way. The work continues. There is a lot more that we have talking about and thinking about, but nevertheless a significant step. And most importantly, it created some new interest, some new members from the industry, from vendors like ADCS vendors and drilling contractors, that they see the potential of this. And of course, there are always commercial constraints and commercial concerns, but it's becoming clear that there is potential here. There is value there for the industry and for the individual players. So all in all, it was a very successful demo, in my opinion, and I would recommend, if any is interested, to follow that and watch it. It's worth an hour of the time, That's pretty much what I have on this slide here. There is, I think I covered what is there. That covered this one as well. We have a few more interested parties that want to come in. As a result of this, there is a paper, a position paper, that we're trying to publish at the drilling conference next year in Galveston in March, about the business benefits of interoperability. This, one could argue that this should have been the first thing that you do. First you come up with the business case, then you develop the technology. But we're still recruiting people. We're still trying to show the value and the, why this is a good idea. So it's not late to come up with a paper like this, even now. The work that we have is done by volunteers, and we're still at the very early stages. There is no real commercial products out there to offer, what we have been discussing and developing. So we're still at the very early stages. Now, there is work going on in other groups, in other initiatives that is related to that, and that has to do with, some of you may know, a project called SMART. And the idea there is how to get a rig action plan coming from an operator, usually as a Word document or as a PDF document, or sometimes as a Excel document. There is no standard format. How to take all that, extract the information and the features that are important in a digital form, in a computer readable form, and pass it into the execution system, which likely comes from the drilling contractor. And that includes limits, includes procedures, includes operating parameters, weight on bit, etc. It can include a number of things, Imagine now the challenge of getting all this information in an unstructured, non-standard way and put it into a control system that can execute it. So, as you can imagine, there is potential for human error when you transfer manually from one format to another, And that's what we're trying to do here, to avoid this possibility for human error and automate that by standardizing the way that information is captured and used. This was an effort started by Mark Anderson at Ensign and Nicholas Brown, an intern, and now it is in the phase 2 after the initial 3-4 months that Nicholas spent on it, and it continues. And as you can tell, there is an overlap there between the work that DWIS is doing about interoperability and the work that the SMART project is doing. Another initiative is the Well Data Foundation, WDF, under the OSDU. This is a much bigger scope of work. It's not focused only on the execution while you are drilling the well, but also more static data from our perspective, from the execution perspective, reservoir data, well data, field data, etc. But part of what they are covering also is the execution of the well, the well plan and real-time measurements, etc. So the idea is for DWIS to stay in sync with all these initiatives. And actually, Eric gave a presentation to the OSDU group a couple of weeks ago, showing them what we are doing in DWIS and what is the relation. And that dialogue is open. Like I said, there is no complete alignment, but there is some overlap between the different efforts. Okay, so that's all I had really for DWIS. The calls there are weekly calls, and then there are more less frequent quarterly update calls. So if anyone wants to participate in any of these work streams, feel free to reach out to me or to the work stream leaders, and you can get the links and follow. All right, so the next one is about the verification and validation subcommittee. This is a relatively newer initiative. Is very much related to the work going on in DWIS. The idea there is when you have software modules or advisors coming from different vendors, can be service companies, it can be contractors, it can be consultants, it can be third parties, it can be anything, that all of them, they want to plug into the rig control system and provide recommendations. One of them, for example, is trying to do well placement. The next one, maybe from a different vendor, is trying to monitor the whole cleaning, and that we don't have data cuttings accumulations. The next one maybe is doing well control and MPD. The next one maybe trying to avoid fracking deformation or losing mud or taking a kick, etc. So you have potentially several advisors like this, all of them trying to achieve a different objective, but all of them trying to control, if you want, the same limited number of variables we have, the weight, the flow, the RPM, etc. How do you make sure that all these work well together? Not just that they can exchange data. That's the easy part. But how about the logic behind them? How about the algorithms behind them? How do you make sure that they don't collide with one another and create a disaster? Because this is not a centralized piece of software. Now you have a distributed system, and still you have to test and validate that under all scenarios, all these pieces work well together. So that's really the challenge, the task that this group is tackling. And it's very difficult, as you can imagine, but I don't think we are the first ones that we're facing something like this. There are problems like this, in aviation and other large-scale systems where components from different vendors have to work together and make sure that everything is not 99% reliable, it's 100% reliable. How do we get there? So we're still in the early stages of that discussion, and we have to limit the scope of what we're trying to do because we only have, how many, 8 or 10 people participating. We can only bite so much. Now, a presentation on this topic is what I had scheduled for today, which unfortunately didn't happen, but we will have it in January. And there are methodologies there that people have been using how to tackle this type of problem. One of them is called STAMP, and that's what we will see in this talk. If anybody is interested, they can search. There is literature out on the internet. It's very interesting. An example that I wanted to share is about the space shuttle, which is another large-scale system with distributed pieces of software coming from different vendors. And there you see the challenges that they face, how to test all these different scenarios and make sure that the system works. The challenge here is not you have millions and millions of scenarios that can develop when software from different providers operates together. It is impossible to cover all these scenarios in an exhaustive, let's say, orthogonal space. So how do you tackle that problem? And people have done this. I mean, this is, like I said, this is not new. We're not discovering this. Anyway, so that's a group. Rodika Mihai from Norse is leading the discussions. We're trying to formulate what part of it and what the scope is at this point, not to go too big and too vague. In this diagram here, which is a little bit difficult to read, but the idea is that you have modules, different modules that pass data from one to the other, and there is, certain scope of functionality in each one of them. The easy part, like I said, is the protocols and the format of the data, but the difficult part is what happens now, how all these pieces work together. And you can have, a ROP optimizer, you can have fault detection modules, you can have safe mode management, SMM, down on the right, safe mode management. If something goes wrong, what state does the rig try to go to protect the well, to protect the rig, etc. So all these pieces have to cooperate in a smooth, seamless way without, giving up in the middle of it and passing control to the operator who is not aware of what's happening and why it's happening. So not a new problem, but still a very interesting one. So that's what's going on the verification and validation initiative. Let's move to the next one, which is not as mature yet. This is something that we have been talking for a while. Is human factors, is engineering for drilling system automation. It's a very broad title, and we kind of had a false start with an external vendor who offered for a fee to do some initial study. For example, when you make a connection, etc. What are the steps, the sequence, what the people need to know? That didn't fly, unfortunately, for a couple of reasons. The cost of the program and the provider they lost some personnel and they couldn't really commit to the work. So we're back to square one, essentially. It's an effort that we're trying to push forward jointly with the ART group of AADC. That's where we stand right now. We have made a presentation to the IDC ART leadership. They are very supportive, and we need to get the approval from my IDC board. Now, a couple of months ago, there was the ART conference in Amsterdam, and that came up, the topic of human factors. It was a group of about 200 people in that conference, mostly contractors. And there was a lot of interest. I can tell you that there is a lot of interest in that crowd about human factors. Now, the challenge is that human factors means different things to different people. The topics that came up in that discussion, in that conference, were, for example, the cultural aspect, how people resist change and maybe even feel threatened when automation comes into the rig. That's human factors. How do you avoid that? How do you introduce technology without running into this issue? Another angle is when you bring in a new piece of technology at the rig, you add a screen, and now the driller has, I don't know, 10 screens in front of him. From an ergonomics point of view, it's a disaster, and the guy cannot really pay attention to any of those because he's overwhelmed. That's also human factors. Then you have automation, running a task, something goes wrong, the system, the computer doesn't know what to do, gives up, and passes control back to the driller who is not ready to take over. That's also human factors. So there is no clear focused definition of what we mean by human factors. All those are very valid points, and all those have to be addressed somehow. So this initiative here will have to see exactly which one we focus. And of course, how much we do and how fast we progress will depend on how much participation we have. So all that is to be seen. Now, as a final point on this is that Nathan Morales, who was leading the effort from the ART side, is stepping aside, has been leading for several years, and Andy Westlake from Seadrill is taking over. So between Sasi, who is the rep from DSATS, Sasi Talia, and Andy Westlake, the two have the task right now to describe, to focus down the deliverables of this initiative so we can present it to the IDC board and finally get it off the ground. So that's where we stand on this. And if there are any questions or comments or thoughts here, please feel free before we move to the next slide. Okay, let's move on then. The upcoming events and activities. So before we mention this here, we had on the ATC, Austin organized a social networking event, mostly targeting younger people and of the section, and give them the opportunity to meet some of the more senior people and interact with them for topics about automation, geothermal, etc. I thought it went well. We had about 120 people coming in for an hour between conference and dinner that Monday afternoon. This is an event that we do every ATC. Sometimes it's a special session. This time it was a networking event. Now, that's in the past. Going forward, there is a webinar next week on Thursday, about the same time as this call, where a couple of gentlemen from NOV are going to give us an update about the work that they are doing about clearing the drill floor. And clearing the drill floor, as you can imagine, means automating some of the processes, but also, most remarkably, means moving the driller's cabin off the rig altogether, which sounds a little bit too futuristic, but I mean, this is part of what they're going to talk about. So I think it's going to be interesting. And after that, as we come at the end of the year, we don't have yet the list, the dates picked up for next year, but we have a couple of presentations lined up. As I mentioned, one is this stamp methodology for the verification and validation group, and another one is an example from Halliburton for introducing rig automation case study from the North Sea. Now, those could be webinars or could be presentations during our bi-monthly community calls, like this one. We'll see what is the best way to share this content, but this is coming up. And then in March, of course, we have the annual symposium that we have as a section. It's going to be on March 4 this next year in Galveston. That's when we have our annual elections, etc. And it's a 4-hour event where we go through update of the section, etc. It's joined with the art group, and after that we have a social couple of hours for people to meet and exchange ideas and catch up. So that's in March coming up, and this list, of course, keeps updating. We have typically a webinar every 2 months. That's kind of the figure, either a webinar or SP live. So we have 5-6 events per year. That's separate from the bi-monthly calls that we have, like this one through DSATS. Okay, so that's what's coming up, and I think that's the last slide I have, which is really
Dimitrios, a quick
yes
question for you. Can you go back a slide?
Yeah.
The webinar on November the 16th, is that an SPE webinar or what is it?
Yes.
How do we find it?
It is.
It's an SPE webinar.
Yes. Through the website of
Okay.
SPE under whatever it's called, resources, training. That's how you register there. And I think they give also some continuing education credit, an hour or an hour and a half, if I'm not mistaken. But that's the mechanism to attend it, John. Yeah.
Yeah, and
there's a link on there's a link on John. There's a link on
Yeah.
the DWIS website for you.
Oh, great, thank you.
Look at the calendar.
Will do. And then, of course, March the 4th, we got to get started on organizing that because it's
Absolutely.
coming up very fast, huh?
Yes. Austin is going to lead that event. I talked to him in San Antonio during the ATC. He is very busy these days. I think he may be here on the call, but he's planning to.
But he dropped off.
Yeah. So we need to start reaching out to the speakers for sure, like you say, John. Yeah.
Well, I think
It's
we're
gonna
going to
be-
decide on a theme, huh?
Yeah. All right. So, any other thoughts or comments or questions? Okay. So then the closing slide I have is, it hasn't changed really from one call to the next. We're always looking for people to come forward, and we provide a platform here for people to present their work, their success stories, or whatever they learned from their development and trials, or to continue the dialogue or start a dialogue about topics that are they're important for them. And of course, we have, like I said, we have the webinars as an alternative platform, how to share this kind of knowledge. The second bullet there is, this is a standing invitation for all interested parties to engage one way or another through the calls that we have, the DWIS calls, or any of the other activities as judges in the drillbotics, or the verification and validation, any of the initiatives. Remember that we are we're a set of volunteers. All this is happening because some people commit time to participate. If we're all busy, if we stay on the sidelines, nothing will happen. So just think that way, and that may motivate some people to find the time to come in and participate. We're always open. It's in part of our vision. Is our vision. You know, DSATS is a catalyst how to promote, how to share knowledge in the industry and facilitate this dialogue. That's what we are about. So we're always open to suggestions, ideas, how to people to come in. And finally, the next call, the next bi-monthly call is going to be the second Thursday of January. It happens to be January 11 next year, same time, 8:30 a.m. And during that call, I keep my fingers crossed, we'll have a very interesting presentation about verification and validation as well. So that's all I had, really. I think we finished a little bit earlier. If there are any comments before we go now, or questions or anything from anybody, please raise your hand and yeah, Fred?
Yeah, I've got a quick one. One of the work streams from DWIS is the ADCS work stream, and they're looking at how do we communicate procedures, process of some sort, and put that into the data schema. And we're taking a simple task of tagging bottom.
Yeah.
Except it's not a simple task. Everybody has a different way of tagging bottom. What do you do from the point, and it's different if you're going in on a trip or after a connection. Where do you stop off bottom? How do you start the pumps? Do you need to move the pipe while you start the pumps? All these different things. And there's a couple of discussions going forth. One's on my LinkedIn page, and the other one is SPE Connect. So
Yeah.
if you haven't an idea of how you would like to do that and you're willing to share that so that we can make sure we cover all the bases, we sure would help you put together. We would appreciate you helping us put together the use case. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent, very good. Thank you, Fred. And like Fred said, you know, tagging bottom is just one example. There are many different sequences or recipes like this. You know, how to start circulation, for example, without creating a spike in pressure, how to break gel when the mud has started gelling, etc. So just to bring a second example, you know, there is no end really to this kind of sequences about covering stick slip, vibrations, etc., etc. So we can only tackle one at a time with the critical mass that we have. But if, of course, we have more people, we can be looking at more things. So yeah, thank you, Fred. I mean, it's good if we manage to get a little bit more input on these activities. John.
Yeah, so back to the March the 4th symposium. Like I said, it's getting close, and it is, it's unfortunately time to get started on it. And I was just wondering, Austin was on before, but he seemed to leave. And I'm just wondering, has Austin got a theme to propose, or is there something we ought to discuss and see what theme we might start with as a starting point?
I think what you proposed, John, is probably is an excellent idea. We just need to follow up on this and find people. The proposal was to get outsiders, people from outside the oil and gas, Tesla, Google, whoever it is, and ask them to come in and share with us, you know, some of the ideas and the lessons that they have learned in the development of driverless vehicles, etc. There are a few names, as far as I remember, on the list, but I don't think Austin has reached out yet or secured any of those. But I think that's the general format that we have in mind. You know, it's only 4 months away. John, you are absolutely right. It's just that Austin has been too busy to first with the ATC and then with his day job. But absolutely, we need to pick up that and push it. There is no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion of the external again, I think is good timing for that. And one of the guys I put down was Matt Ondler, who is with Axiom now, so space. But he formed Houston Mechatronics, which actually did work for Schlumberger's automation system. And he sponsored the roadmap, and he came to the roadmap workshops. And he was very complimentary about what the roadmap was teaching him about the view of automation from drilling. So he has had a foot in our camp, and Axiom's a pretty advanced company. So he might be an interesting one.
Absolutely. We just need to take that offline and sit and coordinate with Austin and the rest of the committee and put, you know, some meat on the bones here, you know, not just ideas, but actually plan it properly. I totally agree with you.
He maybe wants to form a committee so he can share some of the workload.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Okureri.
Okay, thank you for this insightful presentation. I don't know what I'm going to say now has been said, because I'm having a bit of a challenge in hearing what was being said. Maybe because my location, I don't know. But what I want to say is that in the ATC meeting we had in San Antonio,
Yeah.
I was expecting that we could have at least had a session just to face together with the names. And if that was an omission, I would like us to take it on board for the next ATC in New Orleans. So at least let's have a, if it's like 20, 30 minutes, at least let's meet and just interact.
Okay. So what exactly is the proposal for the next ATC? To do what? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Okay, what I will say is that to meet and interact as a committee, as a team.
Okay.
All our meetings are always be visual. At least that's a opportunity for us to have a face-to-face meeting.
So you would like to participate in planning the next event? Is that to be part of the committee?
I'm not talking for planning's sake. In future, let us take that into in our scheme of events.
Okay. Maybe you send me an email separately and who can organize the.
What I'm saying, are you hearing me well?
Yeah, it's the sound is breaking up a little bit, but yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry, it's distance. I'm coming from Lagos. Okay, what I'm saying is for planning.
Yeah.
Any opportunity we have in having a face-to-face like ATC meetings, at least let us plan a session around that so that we can have a meeting around that period when we are all in ATC.
Oh, you're talking about the papers, the abstracts for the ATC. Is that? Am I getting this right?
He wants to
having a meeting, having a physical meeting,
some face-to-face meetings so that everybody gets to know each other.
Okay? During the event, during the conferences.
The ATCE,
okay.
And maybe even during the drilling conference. Okay. Is that what that's what I heard? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, like this social we had last time in San Antonio, you have more of those so people get to know each other. Is that the suggestion? Is that right, Okureri? Did I get that right? I think he maybe dropped off. Anyway, I'll follow up by email to make sure I get the suggestion. Any other comments from anyone before we go? Doesn't look like. Okay, so we're a few minutes early. That's okay. Thanks again, everyone, for participation, and I'll follow up about organizing the symposium. And I look for. We're not gonna talk before the holidays. So happy holidays for everyone, and I look forward to catching up again in January for the next call. Thank you very much.